Everything's coming up to Timberwolves. Yeah, in the zone. Simple dedication to the team when you're in the know. To Timberwolves. Yeah, in the soul. Lifting all the positivity for the Wolves to grow. So, where we going from here, man? We listen week to week to get the clearest to clear. Recaps, got that. South Cap, got that. Team ads, got that. So tell me what they do not have, huh? How dare you? Foolish question to ask, but I don't mean to go brag. But boy, they got all the stats, and they could go all the way back from KG to Zerbiak. And all I'm saying is that the cast a one-stop shop for my Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Ain't a thing falling, everything's coming up. Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Falling from the autumn, ain't nobody gonna stop them. It's the Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Phonies, you can spot them, they the sheep under their clothes. Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Talk a lot about them, y'all don't really know. Let's go.
Welcome in to another Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I am joined, as always, by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing tonight?
We're doing good. We're doing real good. I like what we've been seeing out of the Timberwolves lately.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to really complain when you go in, and we'll talk about it in a second. When you go in, even though there was no Durant, you go in and beat the best record, the team with the best record in the East. So, Jared, how we doing?
Doing wonderful. Happy that we snagged 2 out of 3. That was the recipe last week as we left the outgoing podcast from last week. So, hey, we got where we wanted to be. It doesn't really matter how we got there, but we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with it. Just general opening thoughts. What have you seen out of the Wolves this week? And we'll start with you, Chris. Just opening thoughts, and then we'll get into more deeper stuff.
My opening thoughts were, kind of status quo. I just wish that I really wish that we were officiated differently. And I'm not sure if that's our problem or not, but I wish that was different when I look at how other people and other teams are officiated. And I'm just happy that, we seem to be in a good flow. Like our offense is flowing. And I think a lot of that is on the head man, D'Lo, but it's good to see that working.
Absolutely. What opening thoughts? What you thought of the Wolves this week, Jared?
I'm glad Chris brought up officiating because I have a couple notes on that. The Timberwolves have committed more fouls than any team in the entire NBA, and we're not a bad defensive team. So it's not like we're just out of position and whacking at guys. Like, we are officiated extremely hard. And especially in that Knicks game, there was a few calls that just really made me mad. There's certain times where we just seem to get the wrong side of the bounce of the ball, whether it be a foul be committed or a ball going out of bounds. But more into that, there was a very crucial challenge by Chris Finch in that game. Towards the end of the game, the ball was called out on the Timberwolves, and then they reviewed it, and we ended up getting the ball back, ended up closing that game out basically after that. But if we don't have that challenge, that's a completely different game. There was 2 minutes left, and there was this huge crucial call that, again, doesn't go our way, even though it seemed pretty obvious. So I'm genuinely frustrated with the officiating, and I'm not somebody that complains about officiating. You guys know that. Everybody who knows me knows that. But outside of the officiating, I thought we played really well in all 3 games. It sucks that we kind of fumbled the bag against the Hawks after being up big, but the offense is exactly where we want it to be, in my opinion. And the defense is there too, but really the only thing it comes down to is just getting some calls, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it came down to, particularly in that Hawks game, I think a lot of it came down to composure. Now, I don't know if Anthony Edwards, I don't know what he said to the ref. I don't know if 2 technicals right in a row, that seemed a little excessive. That seemed a little excessive to me, but it seemed like the next game the Timberwolves responded pretty well against the Brooklyn Nets and came out, and Cat was under control. That's what I noticed. He was really under control, and the team just looked good. Now, something that I want to bring up before we go into other stuff and I kind of posted about this in the group. Why was, with a minute left and the Wolves up, I don't know, 15 or so, and Brooklyn already calling off the dogs, why was Anthony Edwards and the rest of the starters in the game? And why did we have that close call that could have cost us a lot this season? I don't know. But do you blame Chris Finch at all for that? Because that felt like Finch's first big mistake for me. But what do you think, Jared? I don't know. I just that really scared me in that moment.
So, I mean, we've kind of talked about similar circumstances like this. I'm more of a keep your players on the floor kind of guy. I was that way when I coached as well. But I think you have a point here. I believe the lead was like 10 or 11 when this happened. And I mean, I get it. Like, I feel like hindsight's kind of 20/20 because you look at it and something happens and you're like, oh my God, you know, like how could we have somebody out there and to possibly be injuring a star in that situation? But I've also seen guys like Tracy McGrady score like 12 points in under 30 seconds too. So like, I'm more of we have this game, we have to wrap this game up, and I'm okay with the stars being on the floor. But I also see the other side too, where something like that happens and you can become very critical of it, genuinely speaking.
Chris, what do you think? Anything to add on that?
Yeah, so I was watching the game when Thibodeau left Derrick Rose in the playoff game when they were up like 20, and he blew his knee out right at the end of a game that was, you know, in the bag. And I remember saying, why are these guys still in? Like, I remember saying that before it happened. Obviously, you know, it can happen or not happen at any point. The difference with this game is, and with this team is we just dropped a 25-point lead to the Hawks the game before. These same starters acted haughty, like you know, they already achieved something and choked it away. I think this might have been Finch saying, it's, you know, you got to play to the whistle. Like, you got to play to the end. You guys haven't earned anything in this NBA yet. They might have taken their dogs out or their big dogs out, but we're going to stay in there because you've got to show me that you can finish. And I think there's maybe something about being on the court when that buzzer sounds and you just beat a team like that, that you're like, yeah, you know, I was those guys that were out there. So I think it was more of a message. Yeah, man, if he would have got hurt, you know, obviously, you know, giving a little mental message isn't worth it. But I think Finch right now is really kind of walking a line with a lot of these young stars of, how do I teach them a lesson without showing them up? Or like, how do I get to Cat without making him feel like he's lesser than or not the respected star he thinks he should be? So I think it was a mind game by Finch, and I'm at the point now where I'm going to back anything that Finch does until proven otherwise. So I'm okay with it, but I definitely see, I mean, when it happened, I was frightened, you know.
I was too. And I think for me, the big thing was it wasn't the score, really. It wasn't that they were in the game. It was that Brooklyn had already called off the dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and I was actually kind of surprised how Steve Nash did that so deliberately. Like, he did that pretty early, to be honest. Like, I thought at least one more timeout they were going to come out with Harden and Kyrie and Bembry and stuff like that, but
he might have been showing a message to his guys, like, "Hey, I'm pulling you out because you guys were bums tonight."
Well, Kyrie wasn't, but James Harden definitely was.
Kyrie's been known to put up big numbers in a loss quite a bit.
That's true. Jared, you had something to add?
Yeah, you know, I feel like, you know, it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. Like, when you see something like this happen live, you kind of look at it and say, it kind of like not to get back into football, but we've made a couple football references just this past couple of weeks. But like, there's people that are like, oh, why did the Chargers take a timeout? Like, they totally screwed the whole game. You know, like there's people that just naturally have a negative look on something. Now, to your point, Gabe, though, when you see the Nets reserves come in, I believe that you're correct on that. When you see the reserves come in from their side, you kind of put your guys in and say, hey, you know what? There's a minute left in this basketball game. Let's just let it play out. So I do absolutely agree with what you're saying there, but I also feel like there's a knee-jerk reaction to like these kind of situations.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Now, there has been times where in the past, like, I forget, what was, I think it wasn't it the Warriors game where he basically went with like the second string for like the entire, I mean, they were playing well, but basically they built the lead and went with the second string for the entire basically fourth quarter and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know. I hate to see stuff like that happen. And I like you were saying, the Derrick Rose situation. I would hate to have a Derrick Rose situation here. Now, am I saying that Anthony Edwards is Derrick Rose right now? No, but could he be? It's possible, but that's
got a better jumper than him.
That's true. That's true. So one of the things I wanted to get into tonight is, so the Wolves currently sit with the 7 seed, I would say a game and a half probably behind Denver, and they're kind of in this nirvana of the play-in game, which is kind of where we thought we'd be. But how do the Wolves kind of maybe get to the 6th seed and maybe create some separation, if not from the 6th seed, from some of the play-in teams? And we'll start with you, Chris. What do the Wolves need to do? I mean, obviously the answer is win games, but like, what do they specifically need to do?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it comes back to, and we've said this word a lot when we're talking about offense, and so is Chris Finch, is flow. He doesn't call a lot of sets. He doesn't have a lot of scripted plays. He wants guys to flow. He wants guys to move. He wants the ball to swing around. And without saying it, they've mentioned it a couple times where they've said, you know, it was a big eye opener for our starters to watch these bench guys and G League guys come in here and move the ball around and look very good in this offense. And Finch was quoted saying that, because I mean, they keep trying to say it's those guys that taught the starters, but they don't want to go that far. But what Finch said was, we had a bunch of guys on the court that couldn't get their own shot. Like, they weren't the type of guys who can, you know, go get a bucket. So they had to move the ball and work as a team. And that rubbed off. I mean, if it was that, or maybe it was just, D'Lo sitting back. He mentioned in his last I think it was his last press conference, he said he got to kind of see how he would be in that role. And he could see how a guy wasn't getting back on defense because maybe he hadn't touched the ball in 2 or 3 times, or he would see that a guy's not cutting hard because maybe that ball never comes his way. And he's like, well, maybe I could get him that ball. And I think ever since then, D'Lo, I mean, has turned it up, and he has found his passing chops and just interest in passing. I saw just earlier today, like minutes before I started, that nobody on the Timberwolves is in the top 40 in mid-range jumpers. And I think D'Lo is 49th. Remember how he used to always hit those mid-range jumpers?
Oh, yeah.
Now those are drop-off passes to guys. Now those are pick and rolls. Instead of that mid-range jumper, he's dropping it to a cutting Vando. We're seeing guys cut more. I mean, we're seeing D'Lo cut. We're seeing that ball movement, and I think that flow is where it's at. Since all those guys are back, we're number 1 in offense in the NBA. And I think we're still like 12th in defense or something like that. And that's without Pat Beverly for a lot of those. So I think if we keep flowing on offense and keep sharing the ball, we'll have a chance to stay where we're at least. I think for us to make some separation, we're going to have to either get consistent impact from guys like Nowell and Beasley every single game, or we're going to have to make a move for hopefully a small forward, power forward type guy that can give us some consistent impact, because I just don't think we're a deep enough team to really hold up long term against some of these teams that are kind of beat up, you know.
Jared, anything to add on that?
I'm going to give you the short answer and the long answer, because why not? The short answer is to beat teams that we need to beat, starting tonight with Portland. This should absolutely be a win. We need to start beating these teams that we are favored to beat on the road without their stars. Like, those are just games we have to win. The long answer is, you know, the Timberwolves organization just still needs to keep listening to this podcast. You know, it's funny. I halfway jokingly say that, but like, I was watching the Knicks game, and you know, my kids were in bed, my wife was in bed, and normally I watch on my laptop, but the kids were in bed, the wife was in bed, so I said, hey, we'll put it on TV. You know, so I'm sitting down, relaxing, watching the game. Wolves get a kind of a frustrating but needed win. Kind of battled to get there. Obviously, there was some officiating in that game. I'm watching the game, and all of a sudden I see Cat pick up his phone, and you know, it's about 9:30 at night, and I'm thinking, man, who's he calling? All of a sudden I look at my phone, and my phone starts ringing. It says the Big Cat right across the screen. I pick up my phone and slide it. Hello? Hey, this is Karl Anthony Towns. I said, oh, hey, how you doing? This is Jared. He said, I just wanted to thank you for your guys' ideas this last week on the Everything is Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. We listened. And not only did we listen to your exact ideas, where we said, we're going to get Anthony Edwards started early, we're going to get D'Lo started early, and I'm going to do me. And it led to a victory. And he hung up and he said, have a good night.
Seems legit.
Well, the only thing I'm surprised is he had to go, this is Karl Anthony Towns. I assume you're on a, like, this is Cat or something, or this is Big K. I don't know. I assume you have like nicknames for each other.
No. He told me he was going to use his full name because I have a lot of people watching this podcast, including my grandma. So when I say Cat, sometimes she probably doesn't pick up on that. But she told me to move into the light this week and use full names. So that's what I'm going for this week.
Okay, awesome.
Always do what grandma says. Always do what grandma says. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So we got a question here from the chat. Super fan Alex Pickus, I think it's Pickus anyway. So let's talk about it. What do you guys think of getting Barnes or Bagley? I'm sure those are two names that have come up here and there, but Chris, go ahead. What do you think, Barnes or Bagley?
Sure. I mean, it all comes down to what we're giving up. Like, you could literally tell me any single person and I'll be like, that's great, let's get them. But
Chris Richards.
Sure, we could use some size, man. I'm sure he can bang down low, even as a practice body. But Barnes and Bagley, I would say if I had to put them in order, I would say give me Bagley first, because I think he's going to cost peanuts. I think Barnes is going to have a decent market on the open market. I think he's got 2 years left at decent money, like this year and one more year. You know, I see him as a really nice power forward, small forward fit. The problem with a guy like that is, you know, his upside's gone. He's definitely coming down in his curve, although he's still a very efficient player. How many years does he have left at his top level? You know, maybe 2 or 3. How does that coincide with us making a push for a title? Probably he'll be done before we're going to be making a push for a title. So then you think, does that take minutes away from Vando? Does that take minutes away from McDaniels? Would it be better to develop those guys more? I mean, there's all these questions. So it comes down to what you have to give. I wouldn't give up a ton for Harrison Barnes, but, you know, he's an Iowa kid. And if we can get him for, you know, a decent price, I think he'd be a great vet to add.
Mm-hmm. Jared, what do you think, Barnes or Bagley?
So I think Chris kind of nailed this on the head in a way. So my reasoning for, I've kind of changed my trade scenarios a little bit. I'm more looking for a guy that can split minutes with Vando rather than start over him. I think Vando has played well enough and hard enough to be our starting power forward. And when you look at that, we say, well, how can you win like a couple series or a playoff series or, like contend for a title down the line with Vando at your power forward? And those are all great points. But this dude has played so hard for the Wolves, and he's made a complete 180 in his game, as far as I'm concerned. The dude has just deserved so much, and he's one player that I am willing to say, hey, you know what? I'd rather take a guy like Bagley for a second-round pick, or I'd rather make a trade for a guy like Olynyk, or just a power forward that can split minutes with him, opposed to him playing like 30 minutes and maybe bump that down to 24, because the best part about Vando's game is he plays defense and he comes in with a ton of energy. And I'm not saying that he can't do that for 30 minutes, but it'll be like elevated more if his minutes just tweak down a little bit and you have a capable backup coming in.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I think another guy that might be out there, OG Anunoby as well, as a possibility. But Chris,
I would love him.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great fit. I think Toronto might want a little too much for him, but we'll see it going forward. But Chris, you had something to add?
Yeah, I mean, it was just to talk about Vando. And it's a question that I've been kicking around in my head for weeks, and I just didn't know when we're going to bring it or when we should bring it up. So like Vando, I think he's a 25-minute a game kind of guy. And then we've talked about that. And that leaves, it's 48 minutes for position. So that leaves, about 25 minutes for someone else. I think Vando's starting or off the bench. I don't think it doesn't matter because he's bringing that same energy and impact both ways. But it's a real question that Timberwolves are going to have to face. Like, is this guy long-term power forward type, or do we make a move for a power forward? Like, we're going to have a first-round draft pick this year, no matter what. And it's going to be, probably between, 14 and 18. So like in that realm, do you make a move for a small forward? Do you make a move for a combo point guard guy, since we don't have really point guard? Or do you make a power forward move because, Vando might not be the long-term guy. So I'm excited to see where we go, but I definitely would love to see, like you mentioned, OG Anunoby. He's like a small forward that can play some power forward. That's the kind of guy I would really like to go for, because I think Prince's minutes need to be eliminated. And I think McDaniels isn't really bringing that much either, to be honest. Like, he's fine, but I think we could use an upgrade if we're just going to make a push to, try to move up a couple levels.
Okay, so you're saying that McDaniels to you is expendable, in your opinion?
I mean, it depends what the trade is always. Everyone's expendable in my book, but I would say McDaniels isn't blowing my mind in his production. I mean, he leads the NBA in fouls, but he's a good defender, good to great defender, sure. But he brings so little on offense. He's starting to cut a little bit more, but I mean, if we could have a guy that, I don't know, if we could have OG Anunoby instead of McDaniels, I think we would be, I mean, that's a huge step up, but that would be a big move. I think we should be, as fans, past the point of thinking that McDaniels is untouchable and he cannot be traded. I think that's a Rube take and a Homer take. And I think that needs to be erased. I'm glad to see what will happen in the future with him, but by no means am I locked into him as a future superstar from what I've seen so far.
Right. Jared, go ahead.
I was just going to kind of twist this question a little bit. Now, depending on what the trade looks, who would you, or looks like, who would you be more willing to trade right now? And I think I know the answer to this question, but I bring it up because a lot of people really love this guy, Jared Vanderbilt or Jaden McDaniels. Because for me, it's McDaniels because, one, I think his value is a little bit higher because he's younger. But at the same point in time, like, this is a legit question we never thought we'd have. Right.
Because at the end of last year, other than on this podcast, everybody thought Vanderbilt was junk. And everybody thought McDaniels was the next, Kevin Durant kind of guy. with better defense or something
Right.
crazy. But I would say keep Vanderbilt because he's also on a $5 million contract for the next 3 years. And I think McDaniels, we're going to need to pay him after next year, and he might be $15 million guy just off potential. So yeah, I mean, depends on what you can get back. But if you could give, listen, I'd give a couple firsts in Vanderbilt or a couple firsts in McDaniels for a guy like OG.
Mhm.
I mean, because that's a sure thing upgrade. And
So
OG plays D2.
So one thing I wanted to bring up, I saw this article and I wanted to kind of share it with you guys. So I'm going to put it on the screen right here. So it's basically 3 players that every NBA team could go for at the trade deadline. So it's their dream scenario, it's their
Right.
realistic pick, and then it's their sleeper pick. So for the Wolves, they have OG Anunoby, which we've been talking about, Larry Nance, which I know has been. I know even going back to the offseason, people have been coveting him a little bit. And then Jermichael Green? I don't know. What do you guys think of these picks right here?
I'll go first. I think that Nance kind of fits that role that I'm talking about with that backup power forward,
Sure,
24, right. 26 minutes a game. You know, you split it between your 2 power forwards and you just go on. Now, a guy like OG would probably he should start on this team if we acquire him. I think you would see a starting lineup of D'Lo, Edwards, OG, Vando, and Cat. Assuming that all of our pieces are still in place, which obviously they would be. I think that like you said, that's the dream scenario because then you can play. Well, we already have a thin bench, but it that kind of situation where you can hand out 30 minutes to your small forward or your 2 guard, depending on how expandable they are with Beverly. If you can hand out 30 minutes to your small forward on this team and not have to really blink an eye, that's a huge upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Chris, go ahead. Anything to add on that?
So OG is signed for the next 4 years at about 17 million each. So if we signed him, we would move, a guy like Prince, maybe McDaniels, and a couple firsts probably is what that would cost, I would assume. I think that contract is pretty good for him. I don't think that's a big overpay at 17 million a year. I think he would have value at that spot. How tall is he? Not it's a different kind of NBA, but he's 6'7". So he'd be a little bit undersized for power forward, but that's kind of what's hot right now. Yeah, that would be cool. Larry Nance, I think he showed when he came in and played some starters minutes in Portland that he's just an effective basketball player. He's a smart basketball player. He makes the right plays. He's in the right spot. He makes the extra pass. He hits the open shot when it's there. He can be a little bit of a lob target still with his athleticism. I think he would be a great fit. I would love to see him on our team. Like you were saying, just as a guy that can, him and Vanderbilt would be a very nice power forward combo. And then he can also play some, he can play some small forward, or Vanderbilt can play small forward, and they can play them both together. That would be nice. And Jermichael Green, he's been a guy that that has always been kind of on the Timberwolves radar, and he's just like a hustle guy. He's like a Vanderbilt type guy. I would love to get him too. Just add some, a little bit of size, a little bit more toughness. Prince has had a couple good games, but I am actively looking to replace his minutes as quickly as we can because I don't. I mean, he brings so little. I just want something. I just want that backup role, backup small forward, or whatever role he's playing to just give us something. And I've seen a lot of nothing out of those minutes for a long time. One guy that I would love to trade for, which I don't know why. I don't know exactly what the Jazz would do, why they would do it, what would be their benefit. But they've been talking about wanting to move Joe Ingles. And Joe Ingles, to me, would be the absolute perfect guy for us because we need a playmaker opposite of D'Lo. D'Lo is the only guy on our team that knows how to pass a basketball. And now that we're playing Nowell as a power, like a point guard type guy, but I mean, Nowell hasn't found a shot that he doesn't like to shoot yet either. So if we could have a guy like Joe Ingles on that unit who can kind of calm the offense, can kind of move the ball if need be, can kind of be that point forward and still let Nowell get his buckets, get his run, I think that would be great. And he's also a guy that can be a spot up shooter that, has led the league in percentage multiple years type guy. And I think he would be a huge role. To get him, we would, have to give up a Kobe and, maybe make the picks work or something. And hopefully they're in such need for perimeter defense. They might bite on a Kogi or a Kogi and maybe a Kogi and Prince if they believe in Prince's defense or something. But that would be a guy I would love. I just don't know how to make the trade work for both teams.
Yeah, that would be difficult considering that just because I think particularly because the Jazz are trying to win now, and
supposedly,
I don't know.
I mean, he hasn't been getting many minutes for them because they say that their perimeter defense is so bad.
Okay.
And that's what's supposed to be killing the Jazz. I just really think that our focus right now on bigs and like rim protectors and stuff is valid, but we're tied for second in the NBA, or at least a couple games ago in blocks per game. The Timberwolves are. So it's not like we're not, defending the rim at all. And I think our backup playmaker is probably the biggest glaring hole we have on this team. We literally have nobody that I feel comfortable with running the offense. We have guys that can get their own offense, but I don't see much playmaking going on outside of D'Lo. And I think that can end up being a big problem in the playoffs.
I agree with you. Now, I am looking right now. I'm looking at Joe Ingles' stats, and they are down this season, like you were saying, averaging about 25 minutes a game, so 7 points, which is not a career low, but he had some seasons earlier in his career where he wasn't scoring that much. Of his quote-unquote prime, it's pretty low, and he's only shooting 35% from three, so we might be able to get him for somewhat of a bargain and maybe revitalize kind of his season. I will say that would definitely be a win now move,
right?
Considering that he is 34 years old.
Yeah,
I think people forget that he entered the league at 27 years old. So
he's a free agent next year. And here's the deal: I was looking at, because we have such a drought in power forward or small forward on our team, in my opinion. We need small forwards. And I was looking at the free agent class for small forwards next year, and it's terrible. And then I was looking at just overall NBA small forwards. There's not a lot of it's not a deep position. So I don't know. I mean, there's just a position of value, I think, for us there.
Right. So we got a couple in the chat, a couple people. We got a Jeremy Grant situation, although I have heard that Jeremy Grant wants to be the guy at whatever situation he goes to. Like he either wants to be the one or the two. And that I've been watching, I don't know if you guys ever watch Kenny For Real or Kenny, anyway, he's a YouTuber and he always talks about it for the Bulls because the Bulls are considering getting him, but he's concerned about him fitting into that role with Levine and DeMar. And I would be concerned with a young Edwards, with D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns, with him wanting to be the guy with those three. I don't know if that's a great fit. Christian Wood, what do you guys think?
What's the price?
Yeah, I think the price on Wood is going to be astronomical. But we got hacked by the Russian hackers again.
The Russian bots are here.
They always find a way. No, but
wait. Let me say, believe me, if you're a Russian bot and you show up, I will put your tweet on the screen every time, without fail. I will do it every single time. So go to that website, everybody. No, don't go to that website.
No, but Christian Wood, I feel like would take at least. Oh God, I don't even want to think about how much it's going to be because it's going to cost you a fortune unless the Lakers decide that they're not going to they're just going to be bad. I don't think and the reason why I bring up the Lakers is because I think there's a real possibility they could try and go snag Wall if they're failing. do like a Westbrook for Wall type move.
Man, wait. Let me say one thing about that. Man, does that not feel like another like Kobe, Dwight Howard, Steve Nash kind of thing if they went and got Wall?
Isn't that what they have now?
Yeah, well, that's kind of true. Although I will say Davis is kind of young right now, but I don't know. But anyway, keep going, Jared.
Yeah, no. So would I love him? Absolutely. I'm trying to trade in me and Chris's fantasy league for him right now, but the guy that I'm trying to trade with is MA all of a sudden. But beside the point, I just think he's going to cost too much. A guy like Jeremy Grant is interesting, but he doesn't fit here. And the reason why he's interesting is I think you could see there's teams that are going to blow up around the trade deadline. And the one that we seem to keep talking about is the Indiana Pacers. So if the Pacers ship out two of their, I would say, 1-star and 2 1As basically with LeVert and Brogdon, like if they ship a couple of those guys out, they might be buyers for a guy like Jeremy Grant, where he could end up being the 1A type guy there. It's just not a good fit here. The one thing you have to remember about the Timberwolves when talking trades, and this is kind of why I've reverted back to like searching for a backup power forward or a backup, or not a backup, but maybe like a starting small forward or just a guy that could split minutes, is the Timberwolves aren't looking for shots. Like we have 60-some shots. We have 60-some shots a game going to D'Lo, Cat, and Ant. Like we ain't looking for a guy to like just keep chucking it up. I don't think Grant fits here.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Where if he wants to be a 1 or a 2, like we already have our 1 and 2. Like we don't really need. We
got our 1, 2, and 3. You know.
Right? And also, I don't want a cancer on this team that's like, give me the ball. Like I think that's the last thing this team needs right now is someone saying, "Oh, why aren't I getting my shots? Why aren't I getting the ball?" Like I don't know. Yeah,
like, dude, that's we're about to make the playoffs. What more do you want?
Right. Yeah. Well, and then we just threaten them. Yeah, we'll send you back to Detroit. You want that? I mean, playing with Cade is fine, but other than that, yeah. So anyway, what? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think Jared hit it. Like, trades are sexy and fun. Don't get me wrong. I love them more than anybody, but you have to look at. You can't look at this like the back of a basketball card, where if you add this guy's 20 points to this guy's 20 points to this guy's 20 points to this guy's, shoot, we're scoring 300 points a game. That doesn't work that way. There's no no team in NBA history has had over 3 guys averaging 20 points. Like go back and look at the Warriors when they were like on a roll. They had 3 guys averaging 20 and the next guy was like 12. Like there's just not enough mouths to feed to have 3 guys putting up those types of numbers. It just doesn't happen. So what you need to do if you want to be like creative and maybe like a thought-provoking type trade is who out there is doing the stuff that we don't do? Who out there is like a hard-nosed defender who gets a bunch of rebounds and likes to pass? Find me that guy and I'll talk about him. You know, that's why like Mo Bamba interested me. That's why, you know, Miles Turner, although Miles Turner supposedly talks about how he wants a bigger role, but these are guys that they're not taking a lot of shots. Like swing the ball to them, they'll shoot the open J for sure, but they're rebounding, they're playing defense. That's what we need. We need a better version of Vanderbilt and a better version on offense of McDaniels, and we're good. Like we don't need, you know, or like Leroy Duncan mentioned, Tyus. Man, could we use a Tyus Jones right now? You know, like anything like that is what we need. But a guy that's going to go out and maybe get you 25 points a game, he's not. That's just all that value is lost because he's not going to be getting those points on our roster. He's not getting those shots. So, like, if you see a guy as valuable because he scores well, on our team, all that value is going to be gone because he's not going to be scoring well because other guys are doing that. So all that value is lost.
Right. I mean, when you think of, honestly, the blueprint for this team to win is so far that I've seen this season is solid defense, some timely scoring off the bench, and the big 3 to all score 20, right? I mean, in games, I don't have the official stats, but in games where we've done that, I think we've been pretty successful. And case in point, was Sunday night. I mean, that's exactly what we did. We got some timely scoring off the bench from Jaylen Nowell and Torian Prince. We played some okay defense, and then our big three took over. So, I mean, that's kind of the blueprint right there.
It's another thing we have to look at going forward with this team is what would you guys say the identity of the Timberwolves is? Like if you had to say like, oh, that team is known for what right now? What would you say?
I would say.
Oh, go ahead, Jared. Go ahead.
I would say our goal is to play fast, get a few steals here and there, not make costly turnovers. Like because it seems like when I watch games, or like I sit down and watch games, like we don't turn the ball over a lot in the first half, but like when the game's on the line or like when runs are happening, it seems to be created by turnovers. So minimizing turnovers to like 12 turnovers a game, I think that's fair. We can't have games where we turn the ball over 20 times. But the short answer is to put the ball in the hoop more. We play fast and we shoot at.
Not what we need to do. What would you say the identity of this team is? Like I would say maybe it's hard-nosed defense, hustle, getting steals, hitting the Vanderbilt's like hitting the boards and we're scrappy. That's kind of what I would say.
I would agree with that. Like, but at the end of the day, we have those guys to create those moments. Like you said, Vando, you have Okogie who can do it on occasion when he gets time. Like this team, the identity of this team is they're damn good. What they need to do or change to do, or not who we are right now, but what we need to do is stop complaining to the goddamn refs. That's what we need to do. We need to say, hey, you know what? We're good, and you guys are going to officiate this game like we are. That's what we need to do.
Gabe, what would you say the identity is?
I would say the identity, and this isn't a slight on the team at all. I would say they're a team that's a fun league pass team that other fans out of market need to go on league pass and watch because you got someone who can dime like nobody's business in D'Angelo Russell, who can also hit shots. You got Karl Anthony Towns doing this thing. You got and then of course the big one is Ant, who can throw down a dunk over someone at any time. So I think we're a fun team. I think I wouldn't say we're on the level of Memphis fun just because they have a better record than us, but I would say fun league pass team that can do some damage.
It's interesting you said Memphis because I think they kind of hold a similar identity to us, which is why we
I
struggle
agree.
with them.
I agree.
I think that they're hard-nosed. I think they work hard. I think they hustle. I think they try hard on defense. They're hitting the offensive glass. That's what I think our kind of winning identity is. I mean, obviously, shooting threes and stuff like that's how we win. But I think if you're playing our team, you're like, okay, these guys are going to try to steal the ball. They're jumping passing lanes, stuff like that. And what's crazy to me about that identity is when I think of that identity, I don't think of Karl Anthony Towns fitting that identity, really. I don't think of D'Angelo Russell completely fitting that identity as like hard-nosed rebounder, hustler. I mean, he's doing better. And Anthony Edwards is starting to fit that identity some, but it's weird when I was looking at it, when I'm like, man, this Vando and like McDaniels and Beverly, they're kind of like the vibe of what when those guys are going, we're winning. And it's strange to not have our stars kind of be feeding the identity. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That was just kind of something I was thinking the other day. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So I don't know if we need to get more guys that are kind of those gritty guys. Maybe that's what we need. Because at some point, Beverly is going to be gone. He's not going to be here forever. So we're going to have to replace that with somebody who fits that identity role because he's really been a catalyst to this team this year. And maybe hopefully it's teaching and the guys will pick up some of that. Each guy will pick up a little bit and we won't need him in person. But, I mean, he doesn't have many years left. And if we're going to make a run, we need something that gives us that same spirit.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think like you said, hard-nosed guys. I think there's guys like that out there. I almost feel like there's two different there's two different like facets to this team. Like there's the hard-nosed guys like that, and then there's kind of the finesse players or the scorers, so to speak.
There's the stars, and then there's the rest, kind of. And
Right.
Anthony Edwards sort of straddles them both.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which might be the perfect balance.
Yeah, it could be. We could be creating a new category of all things.
It kind of reminds me of Space Jam when the dude subs in and he goes, whoa, I don't play defense, like guys just got to know their roles and move with it,
Is that the new one?
No,
that's the old one. I can't think of the actor's name.
Is it Bill Murray? Sounds like something Bill Murray would say.
Bill Murray. He was always, oh yeah, I can play in the NBA. All these guys are getting this what looks like coronavirus. When you look back at it, like they're all wearing masks. It's kind of crazy.
Well, the fun fact about a little side note. Fun fact about Bill Murray in Space Jam. He's wearing a St. Paul Saints hat. I don't know if you guys knew that, but he is absolutely wearing a St. Paul Saints hat
because he was the owner.
Yeah, or part owner, I believe. Yeah. So, yeah. By the way, quick side note. I know this isn't a baseball podcast, but have you guys been to the new St. Paul Saints Stadium or in St. Paul?
I wouldn't say broken, but I visited it before it was open, and it was beautiful. And
it's nice.
And then I went to a game with my boy way too early when he didn't care about anything there, but it was awesome. I loved it. It's I think the best thing. I will never go to a different baseball game because it's small. It's like the best seat in the house is like $18.
Right.
Give me that all day long. No, it was beautiful, and it's right by my house, which is nice too.
So I've never been to CHS Field since they've got their new stadium. But one thing that's interesting about that is I really hope that the Saints get to be the AAA affiliate for the Twins, because if you're going to tell me I can see a Byron Buxton rehab night for $18 and drink $1 beers and have a blast, I'm there.
Right now.
They
became AAA this year.
Yeah, no, I've never been, but I've heard nothing but amazing things. Actually, a girl I work with does an internship with them, and she told me, she's like, dude, this is a lot of fun.
What I love about, and I've only been to one Saints game, I should say that. What I love about Saints games is they don't take it too seriously. Like going to a Twins game, it's like people are watching intently. They're like playing Twingo or whatever. Saints game, it's like for example, like the manager goes out to the mound and the PA guy is like doing voiceovers of what he's saying to the pitcher and stuff like that. Like it's not that serious. Like that's what I love about it. Also, every single in between innings, they're doing a game. I don't know what it is, but they're always doing a game, which I found super fun. So one thing that I saw in the chat thing from Leroy, he says, what do you guys think about terrible third quarters? How is it unraveling when we seemed disciplined otherwise? And this is actually a good question. What do you think happens coming out of halftime? And we'll start with you, Chris.
I mean, it seems to be pretty well known that winning teams and championship teams, third quarter is always a huge one for them. We're just not there yet. I think that we aren't disciplined enough. I think that our guys get out to a big lead, and we think we're just gonna, as Jared would say, boat racing the whole game. They think it's gonna be easy. Every shot's gonna fall, and you kind of gotta win the game again every time. We're just not there yet. We're still learning. I just don't think we're a good enough team, which is why I think we did so well against New Jersey. Is I think that Atlanta, I think we're willing to learn, and I think when we got stomped by Atlanta, I think we realized that we aren't who we think we are. We need to, play with that intensity for 4 quarters. So I think it's just a maturity thing. I think it's just a development thing. I mean, you don't go from getting the first pick to being a playoff, a deep playoff contender in 1 year very quickly or very often. So we're just learning.
Also, one thing before I go to you, Jared, on this, one thing I want to say about the Atlanta game, I think the Atlanta game we just got Trae Young'd because he was hitting some shots that are like video game shots. Like he was hitting Curry shots like out of nowhere, and it really came out of nowhere. So, and the fact that we were still in that game in the end, I think it was just a lack of composure, and they have a Trae Young is amazing. I think that's.
I don't remember the exact stat, but I believe Trae Young had 23 points in the third quarter, and the Timberwolves had like he outscored our whole team. You know, not going to win games when that happens. I don't care who it is. You know, it's just not going to happen. But
it wasn't like easy shots. It was like shots from the logo, like a couple times there.
But like reverberating back to these terrible third quarters. I think a lot of it has to do with we're a young team, which, you know, this is kind of a stupid answer, but because I always say this team plays with so much confidence. But it seems like when they get up by like a large amount in the first half, they come out and they're like, oh yeah, we're good. You know, like we're up by 15. This is going to be a cakewalk. And then like 5 minutes in the third quarter, it's a 6-point game again. And it's like, you guys got to just change that mentality. You know, you have to step on the throat. I commented it on our True Fans page in the first half. I said, step on the throat and put this game out of reach because 15 isn't nothing to the Hawks.
No, it's 5 Trae Young shots. And to circle all the way back to the beginning, another thing, it's hard to maintain leads in the NBA when you're not getting to the foul line. And
that's true.
Some of that is not getting calls. Some of that is Anthony Edwards doesn't know how to jump into a defender to get a call. Like on that play when he got ejected, every time I look at it, I'm like, I don't really see a foul, my man. Like I get it, you're pissed because people get those calls, like stars, quote unquote stars, and lesser players get those calls. And maybe you should be getting those calls. But in reality, I didn't really see much of a foul, especially one to get so pissed about. Like if you're gonna do like, I'm an older guy, but Michael Jordan would always go in and he would smash into the guy and throw up some BS layup. He knew that layup wasn't going in, but he was getting his call. Edwards throws those layups up, but he's not smashing into the guy. Like, so you're just taking a bad layup. So we got to get better at getting those calls, making the refs give them to us, and maybe making them realize that we're earning those. Because if you're just winning on jump shots and getting steals for layups, it's hard to maintain like leads. Like teams that can get to the line, like what's been happening a lot lately, late in the game, is you're seeing D'Lo do that sweep under with his arms to get himself to the line when we're in the penalty, because you got to get those free throws. Those are just the bread and butter that keep a lead there. Like it's easy to miss shots in the NBA. So I think a lot of it's getting to the line. I think that would help stem a lot of these. I mean, not third quarters for completely, but just when we're throwing leads away.
Right, for sure. So I think we'll kind of end it there, but first we'll look forward to next week. Let's take a look at the Wolves schedule. So obviously tonight we got a late game. How do you guys feel about late West Coast games, by the way?
I love them.
You do? Okay.
I love them as well because I'm a late night owl, so
yeah,
I'm all about it.
Okay. So then we got the Warriors, which would be tough. Curry back. Although I heard Thompson might not be at full throttle right now. Then we go to Phoenix with the Suns. Then we got the Jazz, who have been struggling. And then a big game on Tuesday against the Nuggets. So it kind of – now I know the schedule gets easier after that, but kind of a tough week for the Wolves in general. What are you looking for out of the Wolves this week, Chris?
Who did you say we got? Give me we got Blazers.
So we got Blazers, we got Warriors, all on the road. Suns home to the Jazz, and then the Nuggets.
All right. So I've got win at the Blazers. I say we win. I say we lose to. Let's win them all. I mean,
Sure.
the Blazers we can win. The Jazz haven't been playing that great, but we always play them tough. You give me Curry, I'll let you have two Steph Currys with the way he's been shooting lately, so that's fine. And then
Suns will be tough.
the Suns are going to be tough. Yeah, that's. I'll give the Suns a loss, but you never know. I mean, you never know. I think this team can win those kind of big games. I think we should be competitive in all of them. I don't want to see us lose by anything over 10 to any of those teams. That's really all I care about. Give me 3 wins. Was it 5 games? Give me 3 out of 5, or at least 2 out of 5, and no losses by more than 10. Then I'll be happy.
Yeah, because the schedule after that is looking pretty good. Doubleheader against, because
really
we got
easy.
Pistons, Kings, Bulls, which they've been looking shaky lately. Pacers, Hornets should be a fun one. Raptors, Grizzlies, Sixers, Cavaliers, who are good. Anyway, that stretch right there with Pistons, Kings.
We got like a 5-game stretch that should be wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Jared, what are you looking for out of the Wolves this week?
Well, we talked about this recipe last week. The answer is to win 3 out of 4, and it starts with tonight. We should beat Portland by 10 points or more, in my opinion. You can't lose like Portland when their best player is probably Nurkic. CJ's coming off of an injury. He's a good player, and he's playing decent minutes, but like we should win this game handedly, in my opinion. And then, like you guys said, I think the Suns is the toughest game, but like Gabe was at the Suns game last time they were here, and we should have won that game. Like we can beat good teams.
Other than the Heat game, that was the game of the year for me so far this year. I love that game.
Yeah, 3 out of 4. Just that's going to be the recipe. I need the Wolves to be a 5 seed, and you know what's going to happen. So
there you go. Chris, go ahead.
Real quick, the real thing I want to see this week is Nowell continue to be effective. Like he's had stints for the Timberwolves where he's been great, and he's followed them up with just garbage for weeks, and he's now been consistent for a while. We need him to stay consistent. We need him to give us 12 to 16 points every single night off the bench, and maybe get a couple assists in there too. And then we need Beasley to keep shooting at a decent clip. That's what we need.
Absolutely. So I think we'll end it there. Thanks for watching and listening to the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell on YouTube, and follow us on Spotify so you never miss an episode. And as always, go Wolves.